I guess we'll just do a roll call real quick so everybody knows who's on the call. And Paula, we'll go ahead and start the discussion. Okay, Arkansas.
Travis.
Florida. Georgia. Kentucky. Louisiana. Mississippi.
Hey, this is Trung.
Hey, Trung.
And Jeff.
And Jeff. And Missouri.
Michelle here.
Michelle. Virginia. I got you, Eric.
Yep.
Anybody else in Virginia?
I don't think so. What's like them?
Anybody from West Virginia? And of course, I'm on the call with ITTS, and Paula's on the call with Cambridge. Is anybody else on the call with you, Paula?
No.
Okay. Okay, the reason I wanted this meeting is Paul, myself and Travis and Trung have been reviewing a lot of documents with Paul over the past, really, 2 months. Paul's done a lot of work to clarify everything and to address our concerns. And the purpose of this meeting is for Paul, to talk about what she's done, go through the data sets, and provide one final training example, indicating here's a data set, working all the way through it so people can follow it. So when they go back to their own states, they can do that. Having said that, Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks, everyone, and I apologize for the abrupt cancellation for the March 1 training. It was just situations outside of my control. It was hard to do training from the Emory emergency room. So anyway, but today just wanted to provide a FEAT overview, and then we'll do an own model projects tool. We're going to be using a Missouri shift example that Bruce had asked us to run shift for and then use that data. For the actual updated user guide for the own model tool, there was a demonstration data set that was included with the guide and the tool that you could work your way all the way through to. So all the screenshots in the user guide actually uses that demo data set that was provided. And then we'll do an overview of the operational projects tool, and Mississippi provided a report that they had where they had done a specific individual analysis, and so this gave us a good opportunity to use the tool to try to see, how close does the tool come relative to whenever you're doing that more detailed type analysis on that. So we'll go through that. And then we'll talk about the rail model and the revisions from the last call that we had. We were able to add in a couple of the additional features that were requested. And then we'll open up the floor for discussions and next steps. Okay, so for the training outcomes, ideally what you'll be able to do at the end of this training would be to discuss some of the key features of the FEAT tools, to demonstrate the uses of the tools, to summarize the uses of the tools, and then want to make sure we can address any outstanding questions and our concerns about the tool. Some of the key features of FEAT is that it's flexible in terms of we built the tools so that they include all of the states within a single tool. It gives you the flexibility of which economic model. It gives you other flexibility in terms of the type of data. You can use a statewide model. You can use a shift model. You could use a regional model to use the tool. So we've really tried to make that flexible. We have toggle on and off switches for fatalities, for CO2. It also allows you to change the discount rate between the 3% and the 7%. It's transparent in that we haven't hidden any of the cells, so none of the cells, none of the formulas, all of those are visible, traceable to all of the users. It's efficient in terms of it does automate a lot of complex calculations for you. And, it's comprehensive in terms of we have a whole suite of tools. It's not all within a single tool, but we have delivered three different tools to you. In terms of the overview, we did build this off from our tier system. Again, from the very beginning when we first started discussing this, it was made very clear to the team that this was going to be built and really was only possible given the resources provided if we were to build off from efforts that we had done previously a lot for the states that are part of the ITTS. And so we did take that, we did build in some additional capabilities that previously we had not. And one of the biggest tasks was really including all of the ITTS tools, states within single tools there. We do have the capacity investment, or what we've been referring to as the on-model tool, because it does use output from a travel demand model. We also have the operation and safety, or the ops tool, and then we have a rail diversion tool. What the FEAT does is it automates and standardizes the benefit cost analysis, and it can prepare inputs for economic impact. However, even if you do not use an economic impact model, or if you use a model that's different from REMI or M-Plan, you can still use the FEAT tools to conduct benefit cost analysis. And then it can also facilitate the project and program analysis as well as provide the inputs for grant applications. So before we go and dive into the specific tools, any overarching comments, concerns, questions? Okay, so hearing none, we'll move on to the own model tool overview. So with the own model, this is really about...
Paula, this is Bruce. I do want to remind people that we've had some webinars about the methodology, and the methodology report has been posted for a long time if people are interested in reading that. And so I just don't want to think about this deliverable as only these tools, but there is a very good methodology piece that came with it in 2016.
Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you, Bruce. And again, we're going to hit it very high level, but if anyone wants to revisit any of the specific methodology, I'm happy to answer questions on that. And then as Bruce alluded to, we do have the methodology report. And then in addition to that, we did for the rail model, we went back and we added some pretty extensive literature review and everything as well. That could be a resource in and of itself. With this, once again, the own model tool typically is used to look at changes in capacity. And most of the time we think about adding capacity, but the example we're going to walk through today using the Missouri example is actually going to be a decrease in capacity. So anytime that you have a change in capacity, that is something that typically you're able to use a travel demand model to really see how that change in capacity is going to impact the overall performance of the transportation system. And so that's really the primary use of the own model tool there. Can evaluate, again, the expansion or reduction in capacity, and it is compatible with the shift model, or you could use your state or your regional travel demand models. Just a reminder that for those states who provided us with the requested output files from your statewide travel demand model, we did develop scripts that can be ran after you run your statewide model. You open up the script and you run the script, and then that will automatically populate a spreadsheet that is needed for the input for this own model tool. Okay. So the impacts that are evaluated through the FEAT tool include travel time. We do separate this out by auto and truck. We look at the auto by trip purpose, whether it's a business trip, a commute trip, or a leisure trip. We also look at the logistics cost impacts. We look at the vehicle operating cost. That's broken down into both fuel and non-fuel. And then we'll look at emissions, and once again, the user has the ability to toggle on or off the CO2, so you can look at carbon emissions or without. Typically, if you are applying for a federal grant, you want to make sure that you include carbon emissions. A lot of times, if you're looking at a regional or a statewide analysis, you may not include those. And then with safety, again, you can look at safety. We look at both property damage only, injury, and then fatalities. You can toggle the fatalities on or off depending on whether or not your state has a policy on whether you project fatalities or not. And then it also allows you to enter costs both on the capital and the operations and maintenance costs. It doesn't do, the only calculations that the costs are used for is that it will use the discount rate to discount those costs for the benefit cost analysis. But the tool itself doesn't do anything to help you project what those costs might be. That has to be input directly from the user. And then it also can provide the input, automate the calculation of the input that can be imported directly into REMI and or M-Plan. And so this was one of the key features, because a lot of times if you're not an economist, you don't deal with these models on a regular basis, actually developing the inputs can be pretty problematic. And so the tool actually automates those, creates the files that you can open up your economic modeling software and import those files directly into that software. And then from your economic model is what is actually going to estimate the economic impacts, such as jobs, income, and your overall gross domestic product or economic output or value added, it's called within the model. Okay. The requirements for using the tool is you need to be using Windows 7 or newer. You need to be using Excel 2010 or newer. If you're going to be doing economic analysis beyond the benefit cost analysis done within the tool, you'll have to have access to a REMI or an M-Plan model. And then also for REMI users only, if you're going to be using the GIS functions to map the results of the economic analysis, you need ArcGIS version 10.0 or newer. And then you will need to have, all users will need to have an Excel input sheet populated with the travel demand model outputs. And this is what that input sheet looks like. And once again, this is the sheet that we've developed the scripts, I think, for the majority of the states. There were a couple of states, Missouri, for example, doesn't have a statewide model, and I think a couple of the other states we never received all of the requested output files to develop the script. The majority of the states, you have a script that once your travel demand modeler runs your travel demand model, you need the output files from those. You need the script. You have all of that in the same folder. You run the script, and it'll automatically populate the spreadsheet. Okay, in terms of using the tool, it's set up by tabs, so we'll kind of walk through the tabs here. You'll start off with really just an overview tab, which is going to give you the step-by-step, and it's included within the tool is an overview that will be a reminder of what each of the tabs within the spreadsheet does. So if you happen to be running this and you don't have your user guide right at hand, it serves as kind of a quick reference guide as to what all those tabs are doing. But within the tools, the parameter tab is going to be the tab where you're really going to do the most work on. And this is where you're going to set up your project. So you're going to name your project, and you're going to set all the file paths for which all of the files that are going to be created by the tool are going to be saved to. You will also define your travel cost factors. You'll define your study period. You'll define your state, what type of model you're using, and any of the key assumptions that's going to be used within that. And then the second tab, it'll be your travel demand model input tab. If you're using an annual daily model, you'll go to tab step 2A. If you're using a peak time or time of day model, you'll go to step 2B. And this is where you're going to use that input sheet, and you're going to copy and paste the data from that input sheet into that. So really your tab 1 and your tab 2A or 2B are going to be the two tabs that the user is going to be providing input on. The next set of tabs, which are steps 3A through 3D, are really just analysis tabs that allows the user to check the intermediate calculations. There's nothing for the user to do, but it does, this is part of the transparency feature of the tool, it does allow you to go back and check each of those different benefit stream elements in the calculations and see exactly what's going on within that. Okay. The next set of tabs are going to be your input tabs, and so you'll have a REMI or in-plan input. Again, depending upon which state you choose, that will dictate what tabs are shown. If you're a REMI using state, which now we currently have Louisiana and we have Georgia and Mississippi as our REMI user states, if you're one of those states, then you're going to see REMI input tabs in steps 4 to 6A. If you're one of the other states, then the sheet will be populated with in-plan input tabs, okay? So step 4 would be your auto inputs, step 5 would be your truck inputs, and then the step 6A is going to start to be your economic modeling inputs. And then you'll also have an output tab, and that will be step 6B, and you will only use that once you run your economic modeling. If you're only using FEAT tool for benefit cost, then you're really going to stop after your step 6 or step 5. Okay. You will also have your GIS tabs. Again, that will be for REMI model users only. And then you'll have your results tab, which will be your BCA tab and your summary tab. On the BCA tab, this is where the user will enter any cost information that you have. And that'll be the only input that'll be required there. And then the summary tab just provides a set of summary tables for you to examine. Okay, any questions or comments before we go into the demo for the on-model tool? Okay, so for the demo, what we're going to be doing is an example using Missouri shift scenario that we ran for Bruce, and this is about shutting down lanes on I-70. Because we're shutting down lanes and we're getting really disbenefits, so we're getting negative benefit streams, it means that we're not going to have a BCA because the benefits are negative and there was no cost to enter because we're not really looking at the impacts of the project itself or why the lanes were shut down. We're looking at just the shutting down of lanes. And so it's not going to result in a benefit cost, but it will result in the estimation of all of those benefits that would go into a benefit cost. The other thing is that we want to reduce the number of years in the analysis. So in order to run shift, because of the way it's set up, we did have to run it as if the lanes were shut down for the entire period. So we ran a base year, which is 2014 in shift, and then we ran a forecast year of 2040. Those are the 2 years that are within the shift model. And so then what we can do within the FEAT model is we can constrain the analysis years to restrict the number of years of the projected lane closures. Okay, and we'll show you how to do that. So what I'm going to do now is exit out of the presentation and bring up the on-model tool, and then we can start with this. Okay. All right, so we can start analysis. This is the instructions and kind of the step-by-step tab description that I alluded to earlier. That is really just a quick reference guide that's embedded here within the tool, and you can scroll down and see all the notes that are included there. So we're going to go ahead and proceed to step 1, which is going to be our parameters. So again, this is where you're going to set up your project. You're going to name the project, tell the project where to save all of your paths, all of your files that are going to be created through the analysis, and then you can go down through here, and anything in the in kind of the peach color tabs means that that the user needs to select an option there. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and name this the FEAT training for March 16th. And then you're going to go, and this is just the typical way that you would be creating a file. I've already created my folder here for FEAT training March 16. So I'm just going to copy and then go back and paste this in. And so that's telling me that whenever I save this model, whenever the tool saves the model, this is where it's going to place that file. And so I'm going to put all of my files in the same location, and so it means that also whenever it creates the file for the REMI, the save file, that's where it's going to be saved, and then any of the output files would be saved there as well. Okay, so that's what you're doing within those blocks. So then we come down to the parameters. The first orange box here is for the regional or the state wage standards. You can choose county or you can choose a statewide average. We're going to be using county level data here. It also tells you what the underlying assumptions are, as well as what the source of those assumptions are here. And then we get down here to the simulation options, and this is where we need to select for these parameters. So the first is choose between REMI or M-Plan. This really, Missouri has neither of those. We did have a temporary license for Missouri as we completed their port economic study that we use. But again, they don't regularly renew that, and they kind of get it on a project by project basis. But we're going to go ahead and set it up as M-Plan because the default for M-Plan is that it sets up county level data, and I want to be able to demonstrate how that macro works. Okay, so we want to choose whether we want to do state or region or the county level. So we're doing regions or county here. And then this is also where you drop down and you can choose the state. This is the Missouri example, so we'll choose Missouri. The travel demand model base year for the shift model, which is what we're using, it is 2014. The forecast year is 2040. There's no interim year. Our starting year analysis here, we're going to use that as 2018. And then we're going to assume that these were shut down for a construction project, and maybe they were shut down over a period of 2 years. And so we'll say the end analysis year is 2020. The construction period is the same for this particular example. And we'll note here that we did put some notes. We expanded some notes over here. So for your starting analysis year, this is the first year that any cost and our benefits would begin. For your starting construction year, this is the year that your costs start, the year that construction is complete and capital costs end. Your opening year is your first year that the benefits would be calculated. Well, since we're going to be looking at benefits, then we're going to fill in the 2018 there. So there'll be some overlap. Oftentimes, you will not have overlap between your construction year and your opening year. So just something that's a little unique about this example. And then we're not using REMI, so that doesn't matter there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Paula, this is Bruce, and Michelle, I know that you're on the call. The reason that Cheryl's always asked that Missouri be the guinea pig state, in case she shares these tools out with her MPOs and other people. So just, I don't know if you knew why Missouri was being picked on for this example.
Thank you, Bruce. We really do appreciate it.
So anyway, so the idea is, Cheryl's talked about sharing this model with some of her MPOs and stuff, so that's why we made it available for y'all to share. So, and does everybody understand exactly kind of the benefits that Paul was talking about? Because it's kind of a weird term that you're actually estimating benefits that are no longer in the system. It's kind of a different concept, but think of it as opportunities forgone or some other thing that you're paying because it's not there. So. And so that's why, Paul, I'm glad you brought that up earlier in the call.
Okay, so for the travel demand options, this is where you want to use the interim year. So we don't have interim year data, so we're going to say no. And then to use the daily or time of day model, this is where we're going to use daily model. Okay, and then estimate the fatality impact. So we can choose yes or no there. So we'll go ahead and estimate those as yes. This right here is just where we're going to choose the default on all of these. Now, the reason why you might want to choose something else is the default uses statewide averages. If you're doing a specific facility, you might have a facility-specific crash rates, and so if that's the case, then it's always better to use the more specific data if you have that available. Okay. And then this is the federal emission standard to include CO2, so we'll just use no for that since this is a statewide effort. Okay. So once you go and you make sure that you have everything selected and everything, then you're going to hit the confirm project parameters. So this can take up to 5 minutes or even longer, depending on the speed of your machine to run. Because what this is doing is it's populating all of these sheets down here. Based upon the number of counties or regions that you have, so that you're going to have this be able to be calculated for every region or county within your state. And then it's also populating whether you have implant or REMI, those input tabs, and you'll see this when it's finished. You're going to see step 4 and 5 tabs show up here within the tool. So while we're waiting on this to populate, any other questions?
I've seen some people have joined the call, and so I've just bring up everybody up to speed. Does anybody have any questions as to where we're at with the model, where we're at with this particular training session? Okay. Yeah, Paul, all this is documented, so you can go back to Jim and tell me you need a faster machine now.
And as I said in the beginning, too, we did in the Dropbox files that were uploaded, we did upload the shift data input sheet, but we also back in February uploaded the demo data, which is the data set that is used, and it has both the travel demand model, and then it also has a tab that has the cost information, and that was the data set used to produce all the screen captures throughout the user guide. So if the user really wants to be able to follow along the user guide and see if they can replicate everything, that demo data set was posted and is available to everyone.
Just to let everybody else know, I've got the website up and running. GoDaddy is my hoster, and they moved everything over to the different hosting service without letting me know, and they screwed up a lot of stuff, and I finally got it resolved yesterday. So I will be reposting all of that stuff, Paula, this weekend. So, but it's the same link that Paula shared with everybody 2 weeks ago on the Cambridge Dropbox, or the Cambridge cloud service that they use.
Yes, and one of the things that I had Sheldon go and do, because under the state scripts, he had kept all of the files that you guys had provided him on that link, and that's just was taking up a lot of space. Obviously, we don't need to send back the files that you guys sent us in the beginning. So I had him clean up those folders, and so now it only includes the material, the actual script and the files that are necessary to run after you create your travel demand model output. So it's a little clearer in terms of what he developed as part of this project. Missouri has a lot of counties, so I've noticed that it takes a little longer than some of the other states. So the states like Mississippi and Georgia that are REMI users, and they've combined some of their counties into regions, so they don't have as many regions, they tend to run a little faster.
And just to re-emphasize the importance of going back through the methodology, all these things that Paula listed as source or directions are in the methodology. You can go back and see that, and you can kind of backtrack where these things came from in that discussion.
Okay, so you see now that it's finally quit running, and we now have the step 4 auto inputs for M-Plan, and we have the step 5, the truck inputs for M-Plan. Okay, so that's been populated. So now the next step is going to be to go and enter your travel demand model data. So we chose a daily model, so then we're going to click on this button, and this is where we're going to enter our daily model. Now you'll say, well, wait a minute, it only shows one county up there. You have to make sure, and we put this hint in the user guide as well, because it's a very common mistake, is you have to make sure that you're all the way over here, because these spreadsheets are pretty large, so even if you're just that far off, you're going to see nothing but blanks. And so you just need to make sure that your cursors are all the way to the top and to the beginning of each page here, okay? So this is what the Missouri sheet, input sheet looks like, okay? So this file has also been provided on the Dropbox. I'll have to make sure it's up on the Ignite as well. I believe it is, but I'll double check just to make sure. And you'll see here that we have no build 2014, we have a no build 2040, we have a build 2014, and a build 2040. Okay, so this is really, besides this and any cost data, if you're running a more traditional scenario, this is the only data that's going to be required for the user to have. Everything else can be ran based upon the default values and the calculations and everything that's already within the tool. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to copy and paste, okay? So the biggest thing that you need to make sure here is, once again, make sure that you're all the way over at the beginning and that you're copying and you're pasting the correct cell. So this is going to be our no build 2014. We'll go all the way over, copy. We're going to go back to our tool itself, and we're going to paste the numbers. And remember, this no build 0, that's in case we had an interim year. If we had selected an interim year of data, then that would have the no build and the year that we selected, and then you would have to put data in there as well. But we did not, so we're going to go back down. And so now we need no build 2040, and we need build 2014. So since these are lined up in the input sheet, we can grab both of these at the same time. Okay, and again, make sure that we're all the way over here to 1, and we'll paste the values. And just do a quick check, make sure that it's all in there. And then we're going to go back down here, and we need to go back and grab the build 2040 data. So once again, make sure we're all the way at the beginning. And we'll grab this build 2040 data. Paste the values. Okay, so we have data where we're supposed to have data, and we don't have it where we're not supposed to. So just want to do a quick check of that. We'll go through to the end over here. Okay, so this ended our county, so our data ended there, so it looks good. So now you're going to click that icon, that purple box, to calculate the benefits and proceed. And you'll see this kind of progress bar down here at the bottom that'll tell you how it's processing. So what it's doing now, this is again average daily data. So it's taking this and it's going to calculate the annualized travel demand data, and then it's going to populate the safety impacts, the emission impacts, and the user cost impacts. So that's what's going on right now. All of these sheets are getting populated.
Are you still there, Paula?
I'm sorry?
I guess you're waiting for your computer to catch up.
Yeah, we're right here. So it's at 85%. So we're watching this bar down here. And once this does complete, it'll automatically advance you to that Step 2C tab. Okay, so we'll see the advancements here. So what you're going to notice here is that we had the base year was 2014. We said our ending year analysis was 2020. Now, if we had out to 2040, like we have in the demo data, it would go all the way out. But since we said that the ending year analysis was 2020, that's all it's calculated here. Okay, so it's giving this is your annualized travel demand data. So this is your no build, your build, and the difference. And it does this sheet has this for every county and or region within the state. Okay, so this sheet becomes very pivotal in the formulas that are in all the other sheets. So remember, we said that these sheets, there's nothing for the user to do except for to look at them. There's no data to input, but it just shows the calculation. So once again, we said that the starting year of our opening year, which is really the closing year in this example of our infrastructure, was 2018 to 2020. So we're only going to have the benefit streams calculated for these 3 years in this example. In the demo data, it goes all the way out to 2040. Okay. So once again, you'll see, and again, you'll see that some counties have bigger impacts than others. Well, that's because some are impacted more by I-70, which was the only thing changed here. So. Okay, and then this is going to tell you this is your emissions. So remember, we said that no, we did not want to include federal emissions, and there's a little reminder right there. That's the reason you have false showing up here. If we had had yes, you would have the calculations showing up. And so once again, you have this for all of your counties. If you go to 3C, this is where you get your user costs. So this is where you're going to start to get your fuel and your other vehicle operating costs, as well as your value of time cost here. And once again, you'll have that data for all of the counties and all of the years that you specified within the analysis. Okay. So then we can proceed to the BCA. This is where you do the toggle switch for 7% or 3%. So this is calculating, this gives you your undiscounted. If you were going to enter cost, this is where you would enter the cost. The first line is for your capital cost. Typically, you're only going to have capital costs during your construction years, but then after that, you may have some ongoing operations and maintenance costs to enter. And then all of your benefits are being calculated from those previous tabs. So once again, these are your undiscounted benefits by your benefit category. And then if you go down here, you start to get your undiscounted costs, your undiscounted benefits, and then we do the discounting. And then if you enter your cost and everything, then you're going to start to have your benefit cost ratios and your internal rate of returns. Now, the one thing that I want to note here is, so let's look here at our net present value. And then if we change this, toggle this, and use the 3%, you have to hit enter here, and it's going to recalculate. And you'll see down here that it's recalculating. When it's finished, you're going to see these numbers change because it's recalculating based upon a 3% discount rate as opposed to a 7% discount rate. The other thing to note, too, is that if I'm not actually sharing this on a web service, like a webinar, it is running a little faster. So the fact that we're sharing it over the Internet and doing it live is slowing this down a little bit as well. So. Okay, and you'll see some slight changes, so you see a slight uptick in the numbers here. Okay. Right, and then when you proceed to the summary, this is where you're going to get your summary analysis, your parameters. So this is just a reminder of what's included, what are the key assumptions. And then it can also give you your discounted benefits by your region or your county. Let's see there, that's going to go all the way down. And then your benefit cost results. Once again, you'll see that we have a warning here, and that's because we have this error message. So we did build in just a couple triggers that if it gets outside of what's typically considered to be a reasonable range, it'll show you an error message. It doesn't always mean that something's wrong. Maybe you just have a really great project out there, but it does caution the user just to go back and make sure that they're comfortable with it. And then Table D gives you your safety and your environmental benefits, and this is kind of telling you in units where this is giving you the monetized value of that. This is telling you the units that those calculations are based upon. So this really walks, so anyone, even if you're not doing economic modeling or if you use a model, I know Eric and Virginia, you guys use Tretis, so this isn't set up for Tretis, you could still use the FEAT tool to get you all the way through the benefit cost analysis. I'm sorry, I just escaped out of auto recover so it wouldn't slow it down. So any questions or comments before we proceed to the in-plan portion? Developing those sheets?
Hey, Paula?
Yes.
So I guess, you know, my whole understanding of how this work has shifted because of later conversations on the whole Tretis option. I guess I was under the assumption at the beginning that the underlying economic data for Tretis was what I wanted to get to enter it into FEAT. And what I find out is that somehow FEAT provides information to put into Tretis. So can you clarify what that means?
Yes, and so what this does, Tretis also has a benefit cost tool built within it, but I think that I'm not sure that you guys have a script or anything that automatically prepares your travel demand model output to feed directly into Tretis. I think that's still a manual exercise for you, so that would be one of the advantages if you're just going to be doing benefit cost analysis, because we did develop the script for your statewide travel demand model, and so if you have the output files from that, your modeler can run that script and give you the input sheet that would allow you to go and pretty quickly do a benefit cost. So I think there's some efficiencies if you're doing benefit cost from this. Now, what you could do as well is once we proceed to step 4, because Tretis is set up much like in-plan because it does use in-plan as its underlying economic model. It's a modified version of in-plan, but it's set up at the county level. So you could actually use these in-plan inputs, and depending on how your Tretis models is set up, you may be able to access and put these directly into Tretis. It depends on whether or not they've opened that capability up for you.
Would they actually talk to that? Is that what you're saying? So what would the file look like that you would export from this to put into Tretis?
Well, I don't know that you would actually have to export anything. I think the way this is set up, you might be able to copy and paste it. So again, Tretis has a way of customizing for different clients, and so without having access to your model, it's something that that perhaps you and I could just have a side visit on. Maybe you could share a screen and let me see how your Tretis model is set up, and then I would be able to better answer that question specifically for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So what step 4 is showing you is the auto inputs for Tretis. For M-Plan. And so this is basically what it's doing is it's taking for each county your fuel, your non-fuel, the opportunity cost of your commute and leisure time, and then your total industry impacts, which is going to be your business travel and your truck travel, and it's distributing those across the different industry sectors within that county. Okay, so then we proceed to step 5. This is doing the exact same thing. This is your non-fuel, fuel, the value of time, and your truck, and it's distributing it once again across the different industries for each of those counties. Okay, so then what you would do is you would hit this Calculate M-Plan, and the way in which M-Plan works, it's a bit clunkier than what REMI is, and so for M-Plan you have to actually create a different model for each county that you're going to run, and so because of the limitations of keeping this in Excel, we couldn't really create a separate spreadsheet for every model. That would be 115 different input sheets for this, and I doubt that you're going to want to run 115 models, particularly because you're looking at I-70 in this case, and not all counties are going to be impacted by that. And so what the macro within the FEAT tool does is it automatically generates the M-Plan input sheet for importing for the 5 counties that have the most significant impacts from your project. Okay. It doesn't mean that you can't do the M-Plan modeling for more than 5 counties, because within these tabs you actually have all the information that you need for all of the counties. But in order to actually be able to simply click on your M-Plan and import a file, you're only going to do it for the top 5. So what we would actually recommend is that you only enter the input data for the counties that are going to be impacted by the project itself. That way, if it's a very localized project and there's only 3 counties, then you're only going to enter data for 3 counties, and this will populate the spreadsheets for all 3 of those counties. It'll also speed up the processing of these and the execution of these macros. So that's also explained within the user guide as well. But we did choose to go ahead and enter all of the traffic data just so that you could see how it works, and then see what counties actually, based upon the output of the shift model, what counties are projected to be most impacted by this particular project. And so for M-Plan, what it's going to do is it's going to produce individual spreadsheets for each of those 5 counties, but it's also going to create new tabs within your FEAT tool itself to be saved that has those same 5 counties in it, so that you'll have them in 2 different places. It'll keep them all within the tool, so it can be self-contained, but sometimes the individual files are easier to import through M-Plan, so that's the reason we wanted to provide that both ways. And then, of course, with the REMI, you'd have a Calculate REMI button, and then what that's going to do is it's going to create the text file that will then be saved that you can import. And for REMI, of course, you can run all of your regions under a single model run. So. And within the user guide, we did modify that to talk to the users who are only going to be using it through benefit costs and telling you where you're going to stop. And then it also then advises the users, if you're using REMI, you're going to follow on here. If you're using M-Plan, you'll skip down to this section within the user guide. So we've really talked through both of those and provided screenshots for both. So this morning, without sharing this live over the internet, I was able to run the whole analysis this morning in about 22 minutes. So
basically, Paul, if somebody had ran through it 22 minutes, and after time they get familiar with it, they should be able to be able to run multiple scenarios in a day, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it really does just depend upon the speed of your machine and stuff. And like I said, my machine's not typically this slow, so it has to be kind of running it over the internet and slowing it down some. So. And I do know, I saw that Travis, I got a message here that he had left the meeting, but Travis actually went through a pretty extensive validation exercise. And so he created some dummy data that was basically the same for each county. And so he had done the calculations by hand, and then he ran the same data through the tool and everything. And so he was able to validate the working of all the formulas and everything through that process.
And by the way, for the rest of the people, this is actually the model that takes the longest to run versus the ops model or the rail model. So just keep that in mind.
We could go on and set up the ops model demo if you want and let this run in the background if we're getting
That's fine.
time. Okay. Okay, so what we'll do next is we'll let that run in the background, and then we'll go back and check on it. So for the ops tool, again, this is for operational and safety tool. These are for projects that typically you would typically have to do either they're not really ideal to run through a travel demand model because they're spot project improvements. So you may run like a VISA model or some other simulation model, but this is really, it can be used as a higher level tool, or if you've ran some of that more detailed analysis, you could use the output of that to then do your benefit cost analysis. It is planning level analysis. The only data that's actually required by users is your average annual daily traffic, the motivation for the project, whether it's operational or safety or both, and the location of the project in terms of what county is it located in. So you can run a high-level, sketch-level analysis with just that data using all of the default assumptions. However, if you have more detailed data, it's really easy for you to go in and make sure that you can customize the analysis based on the data available. It does estimate travel time savings and safety impacts only, and it conducts the benefit cost analysis and produces input for the economic modeling. In terms of the types of projects that are here, that are included, this is the listing of those. And then what we had to do was we had to actually come up with some impact assumptions in terms of how are these types of projects likely to impact operations and safety. And so this is really looking at kind of the time reduction, or actually that should say crash reduction there. And so you can see that, that it ranges anywhere. The key assumption is that if you have some of the more minor types of improvements, like increasing the turning radii, striping changing, that would have an overall time reduction of 5%, ranging all the way up to some of your more major having up to a 20% impact on time reduction. And then you'll see the same with safety, and they don't match up one-to-one like you may, like adding turn lanes could be considered a moderate operational improvement, but have minor impact on the overall safety. Okay. And again, these are the underlying assumptions, the default, but the user can go in and change these. And in fact, for the Mississippi example, these assumptions, these default assumptions were way off based upon their more detailed analysis that they found. So the tool estimates the value of time, and this is assuming that your no-build level of service, F, is a default, but you can change that. And it's based upon the delay per vehicle. So for a level of F, it's assumed if you have a level of F, level of service F, that you're going to have 55 seconds of delay per vehicle. The planning analysis hour factor, or the K factor, the ratio of the traffic volume in the study area to the average annual daily traffic. 10% there is the default, and then the number of congested hours per day, which is 4 hours. So it's only calculating that you're going to have these travel time changes during the congested hours. So again, the overall value of time assumptions within the tool, these are your delay assumptions, the seconds of delay per vehicle given your level of service assumption. So within the tool, the default is set at F. If you go in and you change that, let's say you know what the level of service is, but you may not have the seconds of delay. You know the current level of service is a C. If you change that, then the delay per second, the default would be changed to 20. If you know what the delay per vehicle is, you can just change that number. And then again, your K factor is 10%, and the number of congested hours daily is at 4 hours. In terms of using the tool, there's several tabs within the tool. It's going to look a little, the front page and some of the tabs are going to be very similar to what's in the on-model tool. It'll start with the instructions and a flowchart tab, which provides an overview of the tool and the calculations that are taking place. You'll have the tool engine tab, which is your user input tab. You'll also have a parameter tab before you get to that, which is once again where you're going to set the project up. You're going to name it. You're going to tell it where to save the files, and then put in some other parameter values. And then your tool engine is where you're going to say, how many projects am I going to analyze? And then you're going to input the data that's required for analyzing those. Then you'll get your annualized savings by region tab. This is just for review. You'll get your auto and truck input tabs. Again, this will be formatted, your savings, by your REMI region or your M-Plan region, depending on which model you pick. Those are exactly like what you saw in the on-model tool, as are the input tabs and the results tab and the GIS tab. Okay, so we'll go ahead and talk about the, before we start the demo for this, let's see what this, the on-model tool that we left running. Okay, so now what you're going to see is you see all of these new tabs within the thing. These are the counties that had, these are the 5 counties with the most significant impacts. So these are the
Hey, Paula?
Yes.
Okay, there it is. It hasn't changed. The screen still shows the ops tool. Did you switch to the Excel chart?
Yes.
Okay, it's not showing up. There it is.
You see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so these are the new tabs that were created within the tool. Okay, so now that you have that, you want to go back and you're going to save the model. And it's going to save all of that information. And then you'll notice that it also produced the individual worksheets here for the different counties. There's one for Johnson County, one for Greene County, one for Jackson County, and McDonald County, and then Berry County. And so you can go in and save these individual tabs. And the individual spreadsheets, if you're an M-Plan user, it's these individual spreadsheets that you'll then use to import into M-Plan model. Okay? But what you'll see here is once you hit that save model, it's changing the name and it's saving it under the name of the project that you gave it. So now it's the FEAT Econ model, FEAT training March 16. And that way, by saving it, it will keep you from overriding anything that's in the original model. Okay, so it'll save this and then it'll automatically close it down. And that'll be the completion of that one. Okay, so switching back to the ops tool demo now in the presentation, has that shown up?
Not yet.
Okay, how about if you guys will just let me know when it shows up.
I still see the Excel spreadsheet. Do you have 2 monitors?
No, it's not that. It's just I think free conference call is really slow.
Well, remember, free conference calls.
I'm seeing it okay on my computer.
Okay.
Okay. What are you seeing? There it is. It's up on mine.
Okay. So the example that Mississippi provided for this was the I-10 Diamond Head interchange in Mississippi. And so what they sent over to me was a complete engineering report that they had a consultant do for them that went through different alternatives of the analysis. And so here's the comparative delay summary that gives you your average peak delay. And so they already had an estimate of the seconds per vehicle. And so what we did is they had an AM peak and a PM peak and then the weighted peak day. And so I used this information here that allowed me to calculate what the delay reduction was between the different alternatives. The one that we used for the example, because this was the one that came out as the recommendation, was alternative D, which included some lane widening, but then doing some roundabout at the interchanges. And so the delay reduction there went from 150.3 to 11.6, so a 92% delay reduction on that. So I actually ended up running all of these through the model, through the FEAT tool. And so this was the results from the engineering report. And then, So they were A was the no build, and so they did it. So here's the scenario B, C, and D, and these were the yearly benefits, the 2020 to 2040. So this is what the FEAT tool gave us in terms of the present value of benefits from 2020 to 2040. So you can see that they're to be, really a more higher level tool, that it did a pretty good job. So now we'll bring that tool up and just do a demonstration of it. So. Okay, so you saw there the, here you can see the FEAT training, that spreadsheet finally saved and closed down. So this is the file where I told it to save. This was the own model tool. And so now we'll just go in, and I'm not going to save these since we're not going to be running the in-plan model here on the training, because that's what you would really use those for. So. And then there's our data that we used for that original one, so we're not going to need that open as well. Maybe get some of these things closed down, and it'll run a little faster. Okay, so now I'm going to bring up the ops tool. I'm going to bring up the one where I actually, this is the completed tool here that I had ran to test this out on. Oh. Okay, so for this you're going to start the analysis. Once again, this is kind of the quick reference guide that we have here that tells you what's going on with each of the tabs. So you'll see that you have a few. There's a few fewer tabs here. That's because it's not as complicated a tool. So once again, you go to your parameters tab. This is where we're going to name the tool, just like we did in the own model. We're also going to tell it where we want to save the file. So we're going to put it back in this FEAT training folder that I have. So that's another copy and paste exercise. Yeah. Maybe I didn't copy it.
It's like this big. It's like this big. But let it dry.
Somebody's whispering, and you're not muted. We can hear you.
What? Okay. All right. So once again, on the passenger wage, we're going to use, you can use county or state average. We'll use county. And probably most of the time you're going to use county because these are very spot specific improvements. You'll have your assumptions here in terms of occupancy rates. Your units and conversion factors, these carry over and they're going to be the same between the tools that you have, as well as your safety and emissions costs. So here this is a Mississippi example, so we're going to use REMI. And we'll change the state to Mississippi here. You can choose the discount rate. You can change it here, or you can also change it on over in the BCA sheet. The starting analysis year, I think I had it at 2020. And then this is 2040. And then the REMI base year is 2014. And then estimate fatality impacts. We'll say yes here. And then that's what you have to do. That's all you have to do to get the project set up, to get this set up. And then you confirm your parameter selection, and you'll see that it operated much more quickly on this tool because doesn't have all those sheets to create and everything. And so here you'll see that you have your REMI inputs, and then because it's a REMI user, it also has your GIS files there. Okay, so proceed to step 2. This is where you're going to choose the number of projects, and you can do an unlimited number of projects on this. So you can run a whole batch, or you can run it project by project. So we only have the one project here, so we'll hit confirm. When you enter your number and hit confirm, it's going to produce this line for every project. So if you put 20, then you'd end up having 20 projects down through here. Okay, so the project name, we'll just use the I-10 interchange. The project type here, we're adding roundabouts. The motivation here was both operational and safety. In the region, it was Hancock, so I think it's in a county by itself down here. Oh shoot, that's what I needed to get with the I'm sorry, I have to pull this up. Was 14,000. So, okay. So once you have that information entered, then you can calculate, and it proceeds to step 3. And it's on step 3 where if you have more detailed information, like we did from the engineering report here that Mississippi had sent over, it's in step 3 where you can actually add the more detailed data that you have and override some of those default assumptions. So this was the report that was provided by MDOT, and then there was design. Well, maybe I didn't go far enough. Anyway, the table that I pulled off for the yeah, so those were the findings that allowed me to compare to, but here was the comparative delay summary that they had done. So that's the data that I pulled from. Okay, so here's, we noticed here that here, the no build level of service is F. Well, that's still true, but the delay per vehicle the default is 55. In their report, it was actually 150. And then the other change was that it was considered to be a moderate with a crash reduction rate of 10%, but a moderate a percent delay reduction here. It was a moderate with 10%, but when we did those calculations based upon the information in this table, we actually got a 92% reduction in delay. And so we wanted to make sure that we were overriding that 92% here. Okay, so then whenever we proceed to the summary, okay, so when we proceed to the summary report, you can see that it starts to summarize what your time savings and your safety savings. And then when you go to step 4, this looks a little different for REMI users than it did for the M-Plan users, just because the way the economic models themselves are set up. So you can run the saving macro here, and what this macro is doing at this time, and it's the same way on the own model for REMI users, is it's saving this model, this spreadsheet model, under the name that we actually put in the book, but it's also creating the REMI text file that would be used to then import into REMI to do your economic analysis. So we'll go to one that I ran earlier, and so this was I'm crashing everything trying to make it speed up. So we'll just let this one run. So anyway, just kind of going back, I actually did examples of these for each of the scenarios, as we said, and it came out pretty close, within a reasonable margin of error, to what the more detailed engineering report had as well. So while this is closing that out, and I'll show you that it goes where we told it to go, any questions or comments on the ops tool? Okay.
So Paula, the ops, you saw this Mississippi data was also in the demo packet as well?
Well, Mississippi sent me the report, so I used the table. I mean, I don't know how broadly they want to share their report, but this is the table that this table right here is the one that had the average peak delay for the no build, right, and then all the alternatives, and it was from there that I was able to calculate what the actual delay was going to be. And so that was the key parameter that was changed.
Well, I'm saying I'll talk to Trung or Jeff to see if they'll let us put this chart in with the training stuff, not the whole report, but the chart that you used.
I don't see an issue with that.
Thank you, Trung.
Okay, so you'll see that that model closed down, and we told it to save it in the FEAT training March 16th. And sure enough, there's the ops model, ops training March 16th that's in there. There's the REMI input file as well. So when you open that up, that's what it looks like. So, and Trung, let me know if and there's all those lines are missing. I can send this over to you if you want to try to run it through REMI. I think we've done that a couple times. So, okay. So that really kind of finishes up the ops tool demonstration. So, and I do appreciate getting that report from you guys, because I had never really been able to have that detailed of analysis to really go in and kind of see, kind of validate the model this way before. So that was very useful. Okay. If there's no questions or comments on that, we'll go to the rail tool. Okay. The summary of the rail tool is it really estimates the impacts arising from truck to rail diversion, and it is a more sketch level planning tool, but it does allow you to go in and do a lot of what if analysis. For example, if a state's thinking about investing in private rail infrastructure, they're really going to be interested in what are the public benefits from that. And the majority of the public benefits arise from, for a DOT's perspective, arise from diverting trucks off from the highway onto the rail system. But there's additional savings that accrue to the private sector in terms of shipping cost savings, and then all of that can lead into wider economic impacts if you're making it more competitive within your state. And so the premise behind the tool is really look at the types of projects that typically lead to truck to rail diversion. This is based upon a lot of previous work that we've done with AAR, with the Transportation Energy Futures, and NCHRP. We also did a lot of work for federal highways looking at their ITIC model, which I just heard yesterday they're thinking about revamping. And so, this tool really benefit a lot of the engine behind it. It looks very simplistic. And in many ways, there are a lot of simplifying assumptions, but there was quite a bit of work done previously that really allowed us to develop the tool. The three types of projects that we've included are new intermodal yards, track upgrades to 286,000 pounds, or double tracking a main line. But the bottom line is that any project that you have that could lead to truck to rail diversion could be evaluated through this tool, because we allow you to enter the potential of that diversion two different ways. One of the other big improvements from last fall is that in the documentation of this, we've added in quite a bit of technical documentation in terms of the literature review, and then the underlying, some of the assumptions that was really underlying the work that fed into this tool. In terms of what the tool is estimating, the benefits are going to be the freight rate savings, the congestion cost savings, the highway emission benefit, the highway safety benefits, and the road maintenance cost savings. So those are your benefit categories that we have. In terms of the truck to rail diversion, what's happening here is that it's estimating the annual potential rail diversion in the study area in terms of the ton miles. And it does that by commodity, by year. And so there's a sheet in there that really has all the commodities flowing. To me, the primary shortcoming of this tool is the geographic specificity. We're only doing it at a state level. Ideally, you would be able to do this at a trade lane level, but doing so, it is an expansion that could be done, but it's going to be a lot more resource intensive than what we had available for this particular study. But outside of that, it really, because of some of the features, we've been able to kind of work our way around that a little bit, that constraint. So it's calculating the annual potential for rail diversion, and it's based upon the annual freight volumes in ton miles, again, by commodity, and it's only including commodities that have the potential to travel by rail, because we know there's some things that are not going to travel by rail because of the service requirements or other factors. And then that's multiplied by the rail share mode nationally for a good minus the rail share mode in the study area. So, for example, if 20% of the grain traveling through Mississippi travels by rail, but 30% travels nationally by rail, then that means that there's the potential to divert up to 10% additional tonnage of grain. So we use that national rail mode share as the constraint, the upper limit of how much of a commodity would be diverted from truck to rail. Okay, so the features that we put in here is that the user can select either the percentage of freight that's going to be diverted or the number of trucks that's going to be diverted. For shipping cost impacts, this is again looking at the change in the annual shipping cost, and so this is calculated by taking the average shipping rates for ton mile for rail, subtracting the shipping rate of ton mile for truck, and then multiplying that by the annual potential rail diversion in the study area, again by commodity by year. And so it's just taking that differential between the truck and the rail rates and diverting and multiplying that by the number of ton miles that are being diverted. And then the same concept here for the congestion cost impacts here. This is the change in the annual congestion cost for the highway. So this is the congestion cost per truck mile, and then that's multiplied by the potential for rail diversion percentage multiplied by the annual freight volumes in ton miles divided by the average truckload. So we take your total tonnage of freight and we divide that by the tons per truckload because that varies by commodity, and then that's multiplied by the rail diversion potential. For the state of repair impacts here, we take the change in the annual highway maintenance cost, and that's the highway maintenance cost per truck mile, and that's multiplied again by the number of trucks that are going to be taken off the roadways, basically is what those parentheses are estimating there. And then the other benefits that are included are the emissions and the safety, and they're estimated using the same methodology from the OWN model. So if you're diverting trucks off, then you're diverting VMT off from the highway, and so we use those changes in the VMT to calculate the emissions and the safety impacts. So for the rail tool, it's going to be very simple to set up. So you're going to have your project set up, which is where you're going to enter your project information. That's going to be a project name, the project type, select the potential for truck to rail diversion, and then you're either going to select the percentage or the number of trucks. If you select the number of trucks, you have to actually manually enter in how many trucks. If you're going to do the analysis based upon the percentage, then that's going to be determined based upon your potential for truck to rail diversion selection. For your simulation options here, you're going to again choose your state. You'll choose either 3% or 7%. You'll have your starting analysis year, your end analysis years, and then again the same safety option and the federal emission standards that we have in the other tools. And then your freight annual growth rate, the default is 2%. If you have more specific information, particularly for the trade corridor that's going to be most impacted, then you would want to change that there. In terms of what happens then, you would then click on the proceed to the benefit calculation, and then that's going to bring up a sheet that's going to show you the diversion potential in terms of your truck miles. It's going to give you your freight rate savings, your congestion savings, your emissions, your road maintenance, and your safety. From there, you will hit the proceed to the benefit cost analysis button, and it'll take you to a sheet where you can then enter your cost, and you can review your benefit calculations, and then you can proceed to the summary. And then from that summary, if you have M-Plan or if you have REMI, you can then actually create your input sheets to run those economic analyses. Okay, so from here we can go and do the rail model demo. Show you some of the new features that we have on here. Well, Okay, are you guys seeing the rail model?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
I am.
All right, so here we'll start analysis. This is our parameter, so we can, again, we'll do the March 16th. We can select a project type. So here's the 3 types that we said. So let's say that we're going to be doing an intermodal yard. This is where you can select the potential. So you can either say it's going to be high, moderate, or low. So if you, have some indication of what it might be, let's say that we're expecting a moderate diversion. And this is where you're going to select whether you want to enter the percentage or the number of trucks. So if you use percentage, then you don't have to enter anything else because there's underlying assumptions that says if it's an intermodal yard and a moderate, this percentage diversion potential. If you're going to enter if you select the number of trucks here, then you have to actually manually put in the number of trucks. And then we want to choose a model save path once again.
Hey, Bruce.
Yes.
The recording stopped.
Yeah. No, I accidentally hit the recording stop, but I restarted it.
Okay, thanks.
I don't think Paula wants to do this all over again.
Okay, and so then we can choose the state. So let's choose Georgia as an example here. Again, you can choose your discount rate here. You can also change that over on your BCA sheet as well. Your starting analysis here, let's say it's 2020. They are going to have a new intermodal facility opening up in North Georgia. So the end year is 2040. Do we want to estimate fatalities? Georgia is a state that sometimes they say no on that. We're not going to include the CO2, the growth rate. We'll leave at 2% here. And then that's really all you have to do to set this up. Okay, so then we can proceed to the benefit calculation. You'll see again it's running much more quickly. And so here we have the diversion for ton miles. So this is the number annually of truck miles you're taking off the roadways. This is your freight rate savings accruing to shippers as a result of that. This is the congestion savings resulting to those folks who are remaining on the roadways. And then your emissions, this is your road maintenance, and then your safety savings that you have here. You go to your BCA. Once again, if we go all the way up, this is where you could then enter in the actual cost up here. So we have 50 million. Oh, I know what I need to do there. Yes, and that's going to clear all that. Okay, so I'll need to make one minor tweak. I've got to carry over a formula there for when we hit no on statistical life, but I'll make that as soon as training's over. I'd made it in the other models. I thought I had this one too. So here, if the cost is only $50 million and that's all they're putting toward it, when you look at their benefits and their costs coming down through here, that's going to give them a cost-benefit ratio of 16.1. So that's a pretty good project, but seems a little high, so probably going to have a little more cost than that involved. So if you proceed to your summary report, this again tells you your project parameter summary and then your BCA summary that you have here. And then this can allow you to save your file. And once you do so, you can go back and you can see here our rail model, March 16 training. It's right where we told it to put it. If we want to open this model up and let's say, well, we now have an analysis that tells us how many trucks we can expect to be diverted. And so that tells us that we're going to expect the number of trucks on an annual basis to be 1,000. So then using everything else, you can go back to your benefit calculation. You can see that these numbers have changed and your benefit cost, and come down here, and now you have a not so good benefit cost. One of the things one of the uses for this could be to say, okay, how many trucks, what if we have 3,000 diverted? How many trucks would need to be diverted to get us to a positive benefit cost, or a benefit cost that's greater than 1? So this says if we could divert at least 3,000 trucks annually, then our benefit cost from that would be 1.3, which is trending in the right direction. So that's the reason that we said this tool is more appropriate probably for your what-if analysis, unless you've already done a truck-to-rail diversion and you want to see what's the benefit cost of that. Then you can go in and use this tool to really quickly assess what the benefits and costs would be. Okay, so you could save the file again. Okay, and then that sums up where we are with the rail tool demo.
Thank you, Paula. And again, Paula sent the link out to everybody, and I have all the files, and I'll be reposting them and sending out a link to everybody, including this video, in the next day or two, depending on how things work out. Is there any other questions for Paula? I think we've kind of beat this FEAT model to death. Paula, if there's no questions, and you've answered all my questions, through correspondence the past couple of weeks, so thank you very much.
Okay. Well, and I think with all the states, I mean, even long after, you guys get all your final deliverables and stuff, we're working with you on various other efforts. So, if you have a question, feel free, and I'll work with you independently and stuff to answer questions as you go along, because I do want to see this be something that that you all can find useful.
Thanks so much, Paula.
Yeah, thanks, Paula, and thanks, Bruce.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, everybody have a nice weekend.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. You
Bye.
too. Bye.